It's time for the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for joining me this morning. I have kind of a wide variety of things I want to talk about today, but we've had a lot of folks recently reach out to us that have inherited property or are kind of at the point where they are going to be selling, frankly, their largest home that they've owned. They're going to be downsizing, moving into assisted living. Maybe somebody's passed away. And we've dealt with a lot of that this year and last year, more so than we have in the past, but we've got a really good grip on this estate sale process that people sometimes go through. And so I want to talk about what we've learned, and I think really what you can learn and what you can prepare for, maybe as somebody that's kind of in that stage or approaching that stage or has a family member approaching that stage of life where we need to start doing some estate planning. We need to figure out what's going to happen, especially with the real estate as a portion of that estate. So I want to talk about that for a little while and give you some really practical advice and some tips and some things that can ultimately save you money, save you time, save you stress, right? That's what the job of a real estate agent is, among other things. But I want to talk about that. I also recently came across a report talking about how many people are being scammed by contractors. And as somebody that I deal with contractors every single week, without fail. I have a lot of properties that we manage, that we buy and sell, that we flip, that we interact with. We have a lot of contractors that we interact with. We also, unfortunately, have folks that have had bad experiences interacting with contractors, and now we kind of have to help them get out of this mess that they found themselves in by hiring the wrong person. So I want to give you some very practical tips on hiring a contractor, things to look out for. And then a little bit later on in the show, I want to talk about something that I think makes a big difference in the overall transaction, and that is it's very difficult to measure, but it's work ethic, and it frankly is a concept and a topic that expands past real estate. This is I think an issue that is in a lot of different industries right now. But I want to talk about how that impacts you, the client, whether you're buying, selling, investing, having your property managed, and how important it is for the person you hire to have work ethic, right? To have integrity, to do the things they say they're going to do on time. And so that's the plan for this show. We're going to sprinkle in a few other things here and there. But before I get to anything else, first, just really quickly, jot down my contact information. If at any point in time you want to reach out to me and have a conversation about real estate in any capacity, right? We do anything you want to do with a house or a piece of land, we can help you with. Buying, selling, investing, managing, developing, flipping, quick cash offers, whatever you need, we can help. So feel free to reach out to us if we can, be that person for you to help you with whatever it is you need. My number is 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. You can call or text me. That'll come straight to me. Or you can go to our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube and iTunes and all that great stuff. So let's kind of begin here. So I want you to just imagine for a moment that your parents own a beautiful Charleston home. Maybe it's worth $700,000, maybe it's worth $2 million, doesn't really matter. But it's the house you grew up in. It's where family birthdays were celebrated, where Christmas mornings happened, right? There's a lot of memories attached to this particular piece of real estate. And then one day that home passes to you and your siblings, right? And that sounds like an incredible gift, and it is. But within a matter of months, the property becomes a source of arguments and resentment and unexpected expenses and possibly a fracture in the family, right? Maybe one sibling wants to sell. Maybe the other sibling says, mom and dad would never want us to sell this house. Maybe one person wants to turn it into a rental. Maybe one person's already living there. Maybe one person wants to sell it. Maybe one person wants to buy it. There's a lot that can go into all of this. So who's right? Who makes that decision? And how does a valuable family asset become an emotional and financial burden almost overnight? Well, I think it happens when people don't have a plan in place, right? What happens to the family's real estate when parents age or move into assisted living or pass away? And honestly, this right now, this kind of preliminary conversation that you need to have isn't the most uncomfortable conversation. The really uncomfortable conversation comes later when the property is passed, but no plan is in place. Because I think that might be one of the biggest threats to your family's wealth. It's not necessarily the real estate market. It's maybe waiting until a crisis occurs to determine what happens to the property, right? And so, first of all, let me make something clear. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a tax advisor. Every family's legal and financial situation is different. So, obviously you need to involve, qualified estate planning, legal, and tax professionals, right? But for more than 20 years, I've been selling real estate here in the Charleston area. I've done about $1 billion worth of real estate sold. And I would say that the first problem is that family members kind of confuse their emotional connection to a home with the financial reality of owning it. They might say something like, well, we can't sell mom's house. But what does that really mean? Do they genuinely want to own the property? Are they willing to pay the taxes and the insurance and the utilities and the maintenance and the repairs? Will they personally manage it? What you want to happen or what you hope would happen or what you assume your siblings believe doesn't necessarily matter. Have you actually discussed it, right? So that's the first step, is just having this open-ended conversation. And obviously for you as the owner of the property, if you're the person that's about to go through this or have gone through this, then of course you and your estate planning professional will determine what happens with your real estate and ultimately your portfolio of whatever it is you own. But you can't just assume that siblings are going to follow your wishes if there's not a written plan in place, because I've seen it happen way, way, way too often. We also find it really challenging for people to agree on value. Now, determining value, quite frankly, isn't that challenging for a real estate professional or for an appraiser, but for you, the person that is not in the business of determining value, nor do you have a license and an understanding of how to accurately do that, you get into this situation where you've got multiple siblings that want different things, that have different opinions of value. You need something. You need a buoy. You need something to attach to that is independent of financial gain, right? You need a true third-party opinion of value. Now, you can go and you can pay an appraiser for that information, or, of course, you can have a real estate agent come out and provide you with their opinion of value. One you pay for, one you don't. But getting on the same page with regard to value, I think, is a particularly challenging concept, because different people, especially when emotions get involved, have different versions of what they would sell that property for, right? So, I mean, obviously, if an inherited property represents one of the largest financial assets that family will ever handle, then it's kind of exactly why you need accurate information, not assumptions, right? And before, I think, deciding whether to sell or renovate or rent or have one of the family members buy the others out, the family should, I think, understand the property's realistic value in its current condition. There's also a very important thing that happens, and again, I'm not a tax professional, but you want to call a real estate agent out as soon as that property kind of passes through an estate mechanism, whatever that is, and determine fair market value at that point in time so that you can get a step up in basis, right? This is going to help when it comes time for you to sell that property and avoid more taxation than the law, allows you to. You've got the ability to improve the basis so that you pay less in tax when that property sells. But here's kind of what I see happen a lot, right? Decision paralysis, right? Everyone agrees that something should happen, but they're just having a really tough time after the fact, and no one person wants to be the person to force the decision. So the house sits, right? The grass still needs to be cut. The AC still needs to run. The utilities, the taxes, the association fees, repairs, all that continues, right? A small roof leak turns into a major issue, and then a vacant home develops moisture issue. I mean, I've seen it way too often. And so when that property begins to deteriorate and then the family loses both time and money while waiting for everyone to kind of become emotionally ready, but what happens if everyone is never ready at the same time? So it becomes a real challenge. What I would encourage people to do is have this challenging conversation. And really, I like the kind of top-down approach where the owner of the property provides instructions on what to do with that property. I personally have 9 brothers and sisters. And when it comes time for my folks to pass away, because it's an inevitability for all of us, right? I know I'm the executor of the estate. That's going to be a very challenging situation for me to be in. Thankfully, there's a very clear written plan on what is exactly supposed to happen, right? Now, I'll probably still be the bad guy in some way, shape, or form, but at least I'm just following the plan. I'm not exercising my will, taking advantage, or running into a situation where, because a plan is not in place, we run into analysis paralysis. The property sits, it deteriorates, you sell it for less money, and everybody's lost money in the process. So I think to try and avoid some disagreements, get ahead of this, right? Figure out, how this is going to be handled as the party or parties pass away, or as they move into assisted living, or if something else were to occur. Those are conversations to have with your estate planning attorney. But I wanted to get that out there because we've had a lot of calls, a lot of situations, and a lot of people that have inherited property that don't live here, that then realize once they come and take a look at the property, oh my gosh, nothing has happened here for months. The property's in disarray. Now we need to spend an arm and a leg to get it ready for the market. A lot of those things can be avoided. Money can be saved. In fact, money can be earned, I think, if you go through this process the right way. So create that plan. Call me if you have any questions. And of course, it doesn't matter if it's for estate planning or for taxes or to challenge the tax appraisal on the bills you get every year that determine how much you pay in taxes. Real estate agents can help with a lot more than just processing a transaction. So feel free to reach out to me if I can be of help. My number, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can check out our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. All right, this next topic I want to talk about is something that I'm very passionate about. It is something that I have been on both sides of, and that is hiring a contractor, right? Most of the time it goes very well for us because we use the same folks. Every once in a while, a contractor that maybe we've used in the past, something happens, right? It seems like all contractors kind of naturally have some sort of built-in expiration date where they make some big mistake, or they don't do what they did on previous jobs. Communication fails, assumptions are made, and people are not happy, and people get taken advantage of. And so I really want folks to take something away from this segment, because it's where a lot of people experience a lot of frustration in real estate. So if you're planning on renovating a kitchen or replacing a roof or adding a room or repairing storm damage or just preparing your home to sell, right? Choosing the wrong contractor can become one of the most expensive mistakes you'll ever make. And there are plenty of horror stories out there. I don't need to remind you of why this topic is so important. But the danger, quite honestly, isn't always that person who looks sketchy or dishonest. Sometimes it's the friendly neighborhood contractor that came recommended that gives you a price. It all sounds great. And then they say, oh, don't worry, we don't need to put that in writing. I got you. Well, then 3 months later, the work's unfinished. The contractor wants more money. The materials are different from what you expected. And nobody can remember what was originally agreed upon, right? So I want to talk about why this is so important first, right? 41%, this is based on a survey that happened a little earlier this year. 41% of homeowners never verified whether a contractor was licensed or not. That is bad, okay? There's just no other way to put it. Now, it's different for different areas of the country. Now, this is something that we're getting right. And this, I actually was kind of surprised by this because I'm not entirely happy with the state of, contractors in Charleston. I think they're incredibly expensive in relation to other areas of the country, but it is what it is, right? Interestingly, South Carolina and Massachusetts and Indiana are tied for the number one state in the country in which homeowners verify whether a contractor has a license. So that's good, 57%. But 51% of people also made the assumption that licensing and bonding were the same thing, right? You see it all the time on work trucks, licensed, bonded, and insured, right? Most people don't check past whether or not that person is licensed, right? Where's the insurance? What happens if some big problem occurs? The other thing that I thought was really interesting is that more than half of homeowners, 52%, said that they cut at least one corner when vetting a contractor. Now, where's the impact of all of this, right? 28% of homeowners have been scammed or ripped off by a contractor, and the average loss was $2,300. Now, $2,300 in the grand scheme of things is not an incredible amount of money, but for some, that's an incredible amount of money, and I'm not discounting that. But I think that number is also very small in the grand scheme of things. If you think about the size of a project that, somebody purchasing a home that's dated and then renovating for themselves might take on, that could be $50 to $500 million. Who knows, depending upon the area and the price of the home. But there's a lot more margin for error there, right? 28%, more than 1 in 4 people are going to get ripped off by a contractor. And how they got scammed, 30% of them, or 37% of them, paid in all cash. They said, okay, here's the job, pay me in cash. And then, of course, you know what happens after that, right? They already got their money, so now they're on to tack on some other jobs. And there are plenty of reputable, honest, trustworthy contractors out there with integrity. But there are also plenty that are not, okay? So I would say the first thing to do here, by the way, 30% of people had no written contract. 26% didn't verify the contract. I mean, there's a lot of stats here that just show how people really need help in this category of business. And so the first thing is, don't just simply ask, are you licensed, right? Ask for the exact name and license number under which the work will be performed, right? And verify it through South Carolina's LLR website. You can do that. You have the power to do that, right? Now, South Carolina has different credentials and classifications, kind of depending upon the work being performed. A builder, they need a license if they're going to do anything that exceeds 5,000, whereas, maybe like a specialty contractor or a handyman, so on and so forth, that's a $500 threshold. Anything more than $500, they have to have a license for that. So the important point is this. Don't assume that because someone has a business card, a truck, or experience, that they are properly authorized to perform every kind of work. We literally just ran into this last week with a guy that reached out to us that said, hey, we've just formed a new company. The people that basically comprise this company are all people with 10 plus years of experience individually, either on the building or the contracting side. So we're a new kind of group of contractors that are going to be doing repairs and remodels for folks. So I called them and had a great conversation, and I sent them an inspection report. I said, what do you think about this? And I'm testing them, right? Because I've already got a quote from another contractor. I want to see where they came in at. Well, they came in a lot lower. And I was like, all right, well, this is encouraging. Get to talking a little bit more. They're not licensed. They just formed their company, and they're just kind of building out their their address book full of agents and investors and people that they feel they can earn business from, but they're still probably 2-3 months away from being able to actually do any work. Had I not asked that question, I could have sent that person out to an owner's house, and had we not had another contractor verify that work, then we could be in big trouble. So it's really important, right? But I think here's a really important question to ask, right? It's not just, verifying that they're licensed and bonded and insurance. It's asking for a proof of their general liability insurance and, workers' compensation coverage or a builder's risk policy. At the end of the day, if the contractor damages your home or someone is injured on the property, what could happen if the contractor doesn't have appropriate coverage, right? Something to think about. Secondly, get multiple bids. It's just like talking to a real estate agent, right? And I'm confident in my ability to sit down with somebody and help them understand how I approach this business and my experience and what I do for folks. And of course, let them make the decision if they believe I'm the right choice for them. I don't mind competing against other agents. I really don't. But I think that you, when hiring a contractor, need to get multiple bids. You will be surprised. This is an interesting, I actually just thought of this. This is interesting. When you get multiple contractors bidding on the same job, it's amazing how the prices come down. But when you get multiple agents competing to be your listing agent, isn't it amazing how the price goes up? It's because agents know that one of the ways they can win is by telling you a number you like, a number you want to hear. And if the agents that you're interviewing haven't done a good job in explaining how that decision can impact your bottom line, in addition to everything else you need to determine when hiring that agent. If you're going just based on price, you're going to basically end up one of the folks, which is almost 6 in 10 people right now that either fail to sell or have to reduce their price and take less than fair market value for their property because they missed pricing. Same thing with contractors, right? Multiple bids lower the bids. And so, every contractor is going to have their own version of a contract, but you have to insist upon a written contract. And this is where things can get really tricky because it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. A lot of contractors, and I actually had to pay the price for this. I learned the mistake. And a lot of what I talk about on this radio station, guys, it's me having done this for 20 years. It's me having spent millions of dollars of my own money on renovations on properties, not even counting the unbelievable amount of money that has been spent among my clients over a 20-year period on renovations and repairs, right? I've seen a lot of quotes and inspection reports and been through this process a lot. And as you can tell, I am passionate about helping people save money. This is one of the ways we do it, right? Now, when it comes to that contract, you have to be very clear and specific on what that contractor is doing and providing, right? Now, they might say on their quote something like install new dual vanity in master bathroom. Now, you might assume as the owner that means that they are supplying and installing a dual vanity. But if that just says install, obviously you have now put yourself in a situation where the ambiguity of that agreement could come back to bite you. And that's not a small amount of money, right? Now you compound that depending upon how much work you're doing and things can get really expensive. So I have a guide that I created on how to hire a contractor in Charleston. If you want a copy of this guide, it gives you a step-by-step approach, things to watch out for, questions to ask. It's really kind of like a one-stop shop guide for hiring a contractor. Also, if you need work done on a property, or if you're planning on selling a home and you know you're going to have some work done to the property before you list it for sale, please allow me the opportunity to connect you with some folks so that I can save you some money rather than calling me after the fact and say, well, yeah, we just did this, this, and this. And then when I look at your quote, I'm like, well, I could have already saved you $5,000. So just give us a chance to help you save some money. Our number, 843-800-0065. If you want that guide, how to hire a contractor in Charleston, just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065, and I'll send that over to you. I always like to take a moment and just say that I really appreciate those of you that listen to this program and have for a long time. Whether you're a first-time listener or somebody that's been listening for, I think, the 13, 14, 15 years we've been on the radio. I don't know. It's been a long time. Either way, I appreciate those of you that listen to the show, rely on the advice to help shape your understanding, not just of the real estate market, but of the real estate process. There are very few shows in the country that exist that are just for the everyday consumer about real estate. There's plenty of stuff for real estate agents. There's plenty of stuff for investors, but really not a lot for the everyday folks that need to buy a home, need to sell a home. Maybe they have an investment property, or maybe they want to buy an investment property. So this show is for you. So thank you for listening. If I can help you in any way, feel free to reach out to me. You can call or text me. That comes straight to me, by the way. I know a lot of folks are the assumption that because I have a big company or big team that no one gets to talk to me. That number goes straight to me every time, just so you know. 843-800-0065 or listingsincharleston.com. So this is going to be a bit of an interesting segment, but it's something I feel compelled to talk about. And I think there's something that is just changing in the real estate business, and honestly in a lot of industries. I think it's becoming harder and harder to find people with strong work ethic. Now, I don't want to turn this into one of those, like my generation is better than your generation type conversations. There are some outstanding younger real estate agents that are disciplined and responsive and coachable and willing to put in the work. But I think there are a lot more people that are entering this business who've been kind of sold a fantasy, right? They see someone posting a photo of them selling this large, expensive home on social media, or they see the nice car, the expensive watch, or the luxury listing, and that they think real estate's kind of an easy way to make a lot of money. What they don't see, of course, are, the early mornings, the late night negotiations, the weekends away from your family, the difficult conversations, all the other things that come with being a real estate agent, right? It's kind of the job you sign up for to make yourself available when people are available. So it's like you have a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9 and whatever else is needed to get the job done. But I think because real estate is so easy to enter, that a lot of people do it, but it is extremely difficult to master, right? And so here's the question I would kind of want you to think about, right? When you're making what may be the largest financial decision of your life, do you want someone who likes the idea of being a real estate agent, or someone who has completely committed themselves to doing the work? Because there's obviously a tremendous difference. I mean, a strong work ethic in real estate, frankly, it's pretty hard to find these days, but it means, preparing for the appointment and not just showing up and thinking that your charm and your personality is enough to get somebody to hire you. Or, it means your agent studies the market, right? Instead of guessing. It means they're sharpening their skills, their ability to help you, right? It means they follow up. It means they answer the phone. It means they are willing to have uncomfortable conversations when the conversation is necessary to protect your money. I literally just had that conversation this morning with somebody that wants to sell a large tract of land that will likely be purchased by a developer or a builder. And so they're trying to understand how to even come up with a value that makes any sense. And so I'm helping them through that. And I sat them down in my office. We went through the full analysis. I showed them, comparable sales, but then I also helped them understand like how a developer or how a builder is going to underwrite this particular type of property, and to an extent, like what they're going to be willing to pay based on what can be done with the land. Well, I came up with a number that I am comfortable hanging my hat on as somebody that has sold a lot of these types of properties. Their number is about 40% higher than fair market value. And I had to have that uncomfortable conversation where it's like, guys, we can list. There are plenty of agents out there that will tell you, hey, we can list for whatever price you want. It's your property. And obviously that's true, right? You can hire plenty of it. There are thousands of agents in this market that will just slap a listing on the MLS. But the good ones know that anytime they take on a listing, they are committing to thousands of dollars in marketing and time and energy and commitment and their word. And if they're listing a property that's worth, almost half of what you want to try and sell it for, at some point in time, it's perfectly reasonable for that real estate agent to also make the decision on whether they want to take on your property and invest their time and their hard-earned money into your project or not. It's a fair way of looking at things. But it's also really important that the agent that you're working with has the backbone, that has the work ethic, that will sit down and say, I understand what you guys want. And let me understand how you got to that number, but let me also help you understand why I think the market is going to support this number, right? It's a conversation backed by data and experience. And I think far too often agents just tell sellers what they want to hear because they want the sign in the ground. They want a signed agreement. They want something they can market. And for the agents out there that have these listings that they know won't sell, then they just use it as a piece to try and get more business. Oh, well, I've got a large tract of land listed right now. This is the type of stuff I specialize in. And they start making other calls to other people. You want an agent that's focused on getting the job done and selling the property you hired them to sell. And there is so much more that goes into that. I think maybe in another show, we're going to talk about what agents actually do. I mean, really, I want to kind of give you almost like a day in the life of a real estate agent, because I think there's a lot of, on one hand, misconceptions about what real estate agents do, but there are also probably conceptions that are right on point, which is an agent takes a listing, they pay a company to take photos, they put it in the MLS, it syndicates to all these websites, and then they just wait for showings and an offer, and that's it. And you need to ask yourself whether that person deserves the commission over the other person that is going to be investing a lot of their time and energy and doing things that are consistent with your goal, which is selling the property for the most money possible. So I think that work ethic in real estate, just kind of going back to the original point in this discussion, is that, look, and I understand that, sometimes I rely on the fact that I've been doing this for 20 years and I've sold $1 billion worth of real estate, but that's been consistent over a 20-year period. Obviously, the first few years, business was ramping up, but I've been in the top 1% of agents now for 16, 17 years in a row. That's consistency. That's what I think you look for in agents when handing over an extremely valuable and expensive asset for them to protect. And so, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes there, one of which is, I was going back to finding agents that actually have work ethic. Let me tell you a stat really quickly. And this applies to sales in general, all right? Almost 50% of salespeople never call back a lead. All these inquiries that are made, almost 50% of them never get answered. 25% of people make a second contact and then they stop. 12% of people make a third contact and then they stop. Only 10% of people in sales make more than 3 contacts, but 80% of all sales occur between the 5th and the 12th contact, right? That's work ethic, is understanding that I need to go above and beyond and try and get this person to at least help me understand why they inquired in the first place, but have a conversation with them so I can either help them or, let them be. Maybe it was truly just them being curious and they do not have a real estate need, and that's fine. But most agents never put the effort forth to determine whether that's real or not. Now think about that when it's like an agent showing your house and then they leave you feedback. For anybody listening that has sold their home in the past 10 years, they know exactly what I'm talking about. They get this feedback from an agent. Honestly, they don't know if it's from the agent or from the actual buyer. That's another problem. But they'll get this feedback and they'll say, well, that doesn't sound that bad. I mean, we'd be open to doing some paint, or we'd be open to adjusting the price if they didn't like the color in that bedroom, or, I know that carpet upstairs is a little dated. Maybe we could work on something like that. But the point is, those agents are just forwarding the feedback. Here's what they had to say. Yeah, maybe next time. We'll keep getting showings. Look, no one on planet Earth likes having 40 people walk through their house before it gets sold. Quality over quantity. I want people in my homes that I represent for sale because they are ready, willing, and able to buy a house like that one, which is why we, vet our showings, among other things. As you can tell, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes for I think an effective real estate agent with work ethic and integrity, so that you, the owner, experience less frustration, less stress. I haven't even gotten to the money side of things yet, but there's a lot that we can do, of course, to save you money as well, aside from just negotiating price terms and commission. There's a lot more that goes into it when it comes to your bottom line. A lot of that is spelled out in our home seller guide, the most comprehensive home seller guide in Charleston. Again, if you guys want a copy of that, just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check out our website, listingsincharleston.com. So I think work ethic matters tremendously, whether it is our real estate sales company or our property management company or our private money lending company or an investment company or the industry that you're in, right? I think we can all tend to agree that work ethic and customer service have gotten worse, not better. I'm running a company committed to providing fantastic 5-star world-class service. And if that's something that resonates with you, like it does with me, like I appreciate the companies that cling to what is now seemingly becoming this like old school concept of customer service, right? I don't want to have to go online. I want to talk to somebody. I want this resolved now. And then I want to move on with my life, right? I don't want to get on that soapbox, but for those of you that value customer service, personalized attention, integrity, passion, results, give us a call, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. We talked about hiring a contractor and how important that is. And if you want a copy of my all-inclusive guide on hiring a contractor in Charleston, or if you would like our home seller guide, the most comprehensive home seller guide in Charleston, just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Text the word guide, and we'll send you both. But we talked about work ethic in real estate. We talked about estate planning in general. But I think really what I want to mention is that when you hire a real estate agent, especially in this type of market where it's showing signs of confusion and slowing down and properties sitting on the market longer and buyers being more picky and fill in the blank, it's a different market than we've been in over the past few years. And an agent with experience in this type of market is going to give you a huge leg up compared to the agents that just don't have experience in a type of market where you actually have to promote the house, right, to sell it, rather than just having a flood of buyers fight over it just because it exists, right? You should hire the agent who's willing to tell you the truth, explain the strategy, execute the plan, measure the results, and adjust, when necessary. Not every property goes perfectly according to plan. And I think that same principle, of course, applies when you're buying a luxury home, right? They don't need you to just unlock the front door. They need you to understand value and how to investigate the property and recognize potential negotiating leverage, and help making, expensive, potentially emotionally charged decisions by just providing you with information, right? Maybe you're buying a waterfront property, but you don't really understand a lot that goes into that and the cost associated with that, the insurance, the docks, the maintenance, the seawalls, the permitting, the fill in the blank, right? Maybe you're buying a property downtown that has renovation restrictions because it's a historic property. Or maybe you're just relocating to the area. You're trying to figure out which Charleston area neighborhood or just location overall kind of fits within your lifestyle and how you expect to live in your home when you move to Charleston, right? I think a lot of those types of decisions obviously require more than just a property search, right? They require questions, right? What are you hoping this property will give you that your current home doesn't have? Or how long do you expect to own it? Or what would you be concerned the most if you discovered it after closing? Or, I mean, there's a bunch of different questions we can ask here, but at the end of the day, conversations we have with our clients lay out a plan that's followed, that's agreed upon, that's in writing, that's followed, and that has accountability measures in place. I can't stress that enough. You know, when people hire me, I tell them, and it's in writing, number one, I'm going to get in touch with you at least once per week. It's probably going to be more than that, but we've got a communication guarantee. We will be in touch with you once per week, at minimum. On top of that, if at any point in time you're not happy with our service, you decide not to sell the property, you decide to rent it out, you decide to hire somebody else, you decide we're the worst agents on planet Earth, whatever the decision is, which, I mean, obviously we don't have very many properties that don't sell, but whatever the decision is, we're not going to force you to stay in an agreement with us. We have an easy exit guarantee. That means that we have to continuously earn your business, right? Because at any point in time, you have the right to fire us. And not every agent's agreement is going to say that. And good luck trying to get out of some of those agreements when the agent that you hire turns out to be the wrong hire and you don't have a way of getting out of that agreement, right? For a lot of folks, that is a very challenging situation to put yourself in. And then obviously the same thing applies with, property management. Are you confident it's renting for the right amount? Are you satisfied with the communication you're receiving? Most people don't realize how much more money they could be earning in property management, whether it is by improving the property or just by hiring a company that has more streamlined costs and frankly, better services for less money. But for all of those reasons, right? Feel free to just reach out to us if you have questions. If this is something that you want to explore further, we'd love the opportunity to earn your business. You can reach us at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, and you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.